Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings. And today, it's the best of the year. Now, I know a lot of people will have seen that brief introduction closely followed by this longer talk as being a really clever way of getting your attention. In fact, what happened was I realised I'd left my cup of tea over the far side of the office. Cheers. So, the best things of the year. What can I talk about? First of all, I was going to talk about the 5 best things of the year, and then I thought that's nothing like enough because I've got to talk about too many inks and things. So I changed my mind and thought it would be the 10 best things of the year. And then I thought, well, that's a bit of a problem too because I've got several notebooks and things. So I thought, no, let's just have it as the best items of the year. Much easier. And first of all, I've got to say that one of the nicest things this year is that I've gone onto Patreon, and thanks to all those viewers who have gone onto the Patreon site and are helping support this channel, because you make life so much easier. If you look out next Saturday morning, there should be a video going up, which is just a video to say thanks for all those people supporting the channel. Over on the Patreon page, there's a link down the bottom, so if you haven't already joined up, you can do today. I have a list of my top items, and the first item I've got to mention is this stuff, because it may not be directly related to writing, but I've discovered this, Williamsons Teas. Tea farmers since 1869, it says. This is their Duchess Grey, and Duchess Grey, they say it's elegant and tangy. I'd say it's deliciously citrusy, really good flavour, quite strong and robust, so you do get a bit of a buzz from it if you drink too much, but really nice tea. They sell it in Waitrose, John Lewis Partnership over here, but it'll be available in lots and lots of other places. But this contains Kenyan black tea and oil of bergamot, and it's just really good. So that's the first thing. Second, inks. The best inks of my year. And this is not going to surprise very many people who have watched my reviews. My favourite ink still is the wonderful Ackermann's Israel Seeblau. If you like a teal, a good greenish blue, this for my money is easily the best ink you'll buy. It's not cheap, but it comes in these wonderful bottles with a marble up the top there, so when you want to fill a pen, you tilt it, and the marble keeps all the ink in the top. You unscrew the lid, fill your pen, and then if you want to tilt it and get the ink back down, you can. And it goes plink, plink, plink as it empties. These inks are just magnificent. I'm absolutely over the moon with this. I use it almost all the time in my Visconti pen, of which more later. But this is not the only ink I adore. This year, due to the exceeding generosity of Chris Curtis, I also have this. In fact, I've got another 5 bottles of ink down here, which I haven't tested yet, because I haven't had time, but they're Rohrer und Klinger inks, and this is the Alt Goldgrün, which I've mentioned, I think, in my test of green inks before. But it's just beautiful. It's a lovely pastel shade of yellowish green with wonderful shading. It behaves superbly in my pens. All of them I've tested it in. And as it stands right now, those 2 inks are the 2 that are constantly in use. Now, we move on to vital areas. Pens. I've been given 2 pens this year that have been fantastic. The first was an Opus 88, which is a brilliant pen because it is an ink dropper. So, sorry, eyedropper. So you get this lovely pen, and you get a lovely little eyedropper as well. And the reason why this is a fantastic pen is because it has a massive capacity. For that, I'm very grateful. I should just say that every now and again people send me things and say they really want to keep it anonymous. He did. So I can't say who it was. But thank you very much. The next pen is routinely in my pocket, but it isn't right this minute because it's down here. And that was this. It's wonderful. If you want to use it, you press the back button and the nib comes out. A Pilot Vanishing Point or capless pen. Has different names in different countries. This is a delightful orange colour, and it is currently loaded with a very delightful Iroshizuku ink. It's wonderful. It really is good. Those two pens are in pretty much routine use. But I've got to mention one other pen, which is the pen that many of you will be aware of, my Visconti. Visconti Homo Sapiens, wonderful pens because basically the material is bulletproof. It's made of rock, lava from Mount Etna. But this is great because it was made for me by Dante del Vecchio, and it was made so it has a clear little reservoir in the front, and it has a window to the main reservoir in the back of the pen. Carries a vast amount of ink, enormously practical. If you want to take a note, the cap comes off with a bayonet fitting. Fantastic. And the reason why I mentioned this is because this is now available from Visconti. This is not the only one of its kind anymore, because they've now started making the Skylight Homo Sapiens, which is basically this pen. If you haven't got one, if you haven't got a Homo Sapiens, and even if you have got a Homo Sapiens, personally I'd go out and buy one. They're fantastic. Being able to see how much ink you've got, so useful. Right, that was pens. Paper and pads. Now this is really difficult. I love my paper. I love my notepads. Cafe, fantastic. Really nice. It's it's the Cafe Note, and I believe it uses everybody's favourite Tomo River paper. This is from paperforfountainpens.com, and it uses 52 GSM Tomo River, which is wonderful paper, but it's got a lovely hardback. It's a really practical notebook, so that I'm very pleased with. Cafe and the writer come from the Nanami Paper Company, and they use Tomo River. And I must admit, the quality of these notepads I think is absolutely superb. They are a joy to write on. Really nice paper, very, very fine, 52 GSM again, but absolutely superb notepads. And they even come with their own little piece of pink blotting paper, just to make life easier. Isn't that nice? Very, very impressed with them. There is one other notepad I really must mention. This came from Nero's Notes. Nice little outfit on the internet. And it is an endless notebook, a recorder they call it. It comes with its own little cotton bag, which has its own little pen loop inside it, so you can keep your pen and your notepad and maybe some other things in there as well. Very nicely presented. I've spoken about these notepads a little bit in previous videos. Absolutely wonderful paper, really, really nice. It's I think the 68 GSM Tomo River. Really nicely done, superbly well bound. As you'd expect, there's a little pocket in the back of the book. But it's got a lovely feel to it because it's some sort of rubberized cover rather than the straight imitation leather, which just feels nice in the hand. So that's good. And the very last thing I'm going to mention in terms of paper is I've been using Atoma A4 and these A5 type pads for a long time now. The professional paper is fantastic. The cheaper student paper is really good for biros, not fountain pens. You can probably see on the back there that there's a lot of bleed through and shadowing. I do love my Atomas. I like the fact that you can rip pages out like this, but you can also put them straight back in again in a different order if you so desire. It makes them enormously practical. They are just brilliant notepads to use. But there is a firm called Williamsons that has a very similar sort of ring system, so you can pull pages in and out. But these are quite sort of flimsy in the way that they work, because each of the rings is only held in place by the paper and the covers. If you've got a soft leather cover, for example, they go all floppy and a bit hopeless. Williamsons has got a system where they have a bar that goes through all the rings and holds them in place and keeps them in the same plane, so it makes it practical. I haven't actually used one of their notepads, I hasten to add, but they were good enough to send me some paper, which I've been testing. And their paper is a little bit shorter, as you can see, than the Atoma notepad, but not enough to make any difference. But it is absolutely superb paper, and they do dot grid, they do plain, they do lined. There's some lined, for example, you can see the difference in size. Can't recommend it highly enough. Really lovely paper. If you're using Atoma, then it is not the cheapest paper to use, but it is very, very good. Okay, that's paper, that's notepads. Books for research. Right. This year, I've got 3 I can talk about. First, if you ever had any interest in Shanghai, this is the book to get. Robert Bicker's Empire Made Me. True story of a guy who left the British Army after the First World War and went out there because he couldn't cope with life back in England. Really interesting. Takes you through all of the horrible events of Shanghai between the wars, right up to the Second World War. Fascinating, especially since it's all true. And it's also written like a thriller, so it's very good. Then, as you know, my Mary Tudor books, Bloody Mary series, I rely on lots of information about the Tudors. This is written by John Bellamy, Strange Inhuman Deaths. I've got a couple of his books. Last one is The Criminal Trial in Later Medieval England, which was a bit of a heavy read. This is much lighter, much easier. But if you're interested in what life was like in those days, this is really good. A very good introduction to the law, courts and all that sort of thing. And then there's another one I've got to mention. Because Smithsonian Journeys had me as an expert recently, I had to get some research material. And this is a book all about the notebooks that Agatha Christie used to use, because when she was sitting on a train she'd open a notebook and make a note about all the people on the train and what their lives might have been like, what they were wearing, all that kind of aspect of life. It's written by John Curran, who had complete access to all of the 70 odd notebooks that are still surviving, and they're fascinating because they've got attempts at finishing particular books that then had different endings. They've got notes on people, they've got characterisation, it's got the general flow of the books she was writing at the time, and nothing's in order. So if she'd pick up a notebook, she'd just hunt through to the first blank page and then start writing on it. And it could be immediately succeeding the previous written page, or it could be 10 pages in advance. She had an idea, she wanted to get it down on paper. So you've got comments about a book, 10 pages later comments about the same book, and in the middle a whole bunch of notes on other stuff that she filled in when she could. Really interesting insight into how she used to work. So, that's that lot. And then one last thing I've got to say, which has been fantastic this year, and that's my new waistcoat, made by Tom Sawyer Waistcoats down in Torquay, and it's bespoke just for me, so that I had it designed so that the pen pockets are big enough for a big pen, for example. And it's double-breasted, so it keeps me warm. It's got a lovely... I'm not going to talk about a waistcoat, but all I can say is I'm very pleased with it. Really quick service, very good. Thanks very much. What else do I want to talk about? I think that covers pretty much it. All of the other stuff like Scrivener and my Astra House Freewrite, my typewriter which I do all my drafting on, all of that, there's plenty of other videos around. So that's it for now. Thanks a lot for watching, hope that was interesting. If you want to, go to the bottom where you'll find my Patreon link and you too can help support this channel if you like. And if not, go down to the comments section and there you can give me your views and ideas on the best items for the year. Apart from that, like it, share it, please do subscribe, and if you do, hit the bell button because then you'll get notified when something else comes through. And apart from that, I'm going to go and make myself a fresh cup of tea because this one's stone cold now. Thanks a lot for watching and Merry Christmas! Take care, speak to you soon.